Hello everybody and welcome to Forever Rugby on Forever Sports as England beat Italy 41 points to 18. Actually a very good Six Nations clash despite what was quite a dominant performance by England. It was a much improved performance by Scotland, which is obviously on the scoreline, but just in terms of the way England were playing today. But having said that, it was also a much improved performance by Italy itself, who despite being so young, seem to have learned a lot of lessons from their sort of French demolition a week ago and had a much better game today where they really did try and take on England and take them up in front and try and run at them and try and create something. And you can see that there is something that Franco Smith is trying to build with this Italian side. It is a very young side. It's a very inexperienced side. And, with that, you're going to see some moments of good and some moments of, really, really bad rugby, unfortunately. That is kind of how it goes. But for England, it was I don't think it was their best performance. I think there's still a lot to work on. But, it just looked a lot better. We saw a lot more offloads. It looked a lot more fluid in attack. They got their back three, which can be very deadly, into the game very, very well, which is the reason why both Johnny Day, Elliot Daly, and Anthony Watson were all on the score sheet. 20 points across your back three is exactly what you want. And it just shows you the couple of tackles that Italy just weren't making in the wider areas were a bit of an issue. But if you look at some of the stats, it was a game which, maybe the scoreline might not actually sort of reflect it. I think it was a game where Italy were very brave and arguably, probably would have probably deserved some more points. And I think especially if you look at the Anthony Watson intercept try where Italy had really gotten onto the front foot, it looked very promising, and then suddenly, got busy, who actually started the whole move with a very good cross kick. Throws a pass, he probably doesn't have to. Anthony Watson intercepts it, he's got too much pace and runs onto the other end. But you look at some of the stats here, 61 possession for England to 39% for Italy. So, and that kind of sort of sums up. It was very much a 60-40 split in terms of the way the game went, in terms of a lot of the territory, and a lot of the stats kind of reflect that. England ran in 6 tries to Italy's 2, 22 defenders beaten by England to Italy's 9, 5 clean breaks to 1. On the defense, and this is where I think, Italy deserve a lot of credit for their defense, because they made a total of 87% of their tackles to England's 86%. So probably both a little bit lower than you'd like. If you want to start winning games, you need to get that sort of tackle percentage up to the 90 mark. But, Italy were asked to make a lot more tackles, and attempted 182 tackles to England's 113, missed 24 to England's 16. So, you can argue that England, defense probably needs a little bit of work as well. But I thought I was pretty impressed with the Italian defense. In the first half, a lot of it was England just playing very good rugby. The offload game throughout the match, but particularly in the first half, was so much better from England, where you had the forwards who were, who can, play off each other, and somebody like Curry and Carl Sinclair was awarded man of the match. Some fantastic offloads, and when you could start seeing that, that's how you get over the front line. Even like Luke and Dickey, something like Courtney Laws, was just playing really well, sort of being able to pass the ball between each other, and get. Carl Sinclair made 5 passes across the day, and it was often a sort of first receiver playing a bit of an inside ball and an outside ball, and that's very effective for England. Using their forwards, and not just as runners, but to actually try and move the ball up and down the pitch. But you look at some of the stats here, and the attacking stats for the England back three speak miles. Anthony Watson made 121 meters across just 8 carries, beating 5 defenders. Johnny May beat 3 defenders for his and scored a try as well. So, it was a very dominant performance. But I think the players that I think for me stood out. I thought Carl Sinclair was very good back on debut. Got to deserve man of the match. Curry was characteristically always very good. Makes a lot of tackles. 13 tackles, just 1 missed tackle. Courtney Laws made 10 tackles. Mario Itoje made 9 tackles. Well, it was a bit of a quiet game for Itoje. On the Italian side, Johan Meyer made 15 tackles. Michele Amaro made 12. David Sissi made 13. Marco Lazzaroni made 15. And Luca Biggie made 16 tackles. So it was a very good defensive effort by Italy, and it was just too much for them at the end of the day. England were too physical, and they kind of just ground the Italians down over the entire game. But look, I thought that you can see what's trying to happen with Italy. Yes, England outclassed them today, and that was kind of expected, to be honest. But you can see that there is something being built. You look at something like Stephen Varney and Paolo Garbizzi. 19 and 20 years old as the halfback pairing. I mean, it's unbelievable that players who are so young who are being backed against, the likes of Ben Youngs and George Ford and Anton DuPont a week ago. They are playing against some of the best players in the world. And we saw some really good moments, especially from Gobisi, I thought, who, had some very bright moments, but also sometimes shows his inexperience. Sometimes his kicking game can be a little bit off. Sometimes he makes the wrong decisions. I thought Stephen Varney was a live wide scrum half. He attacked the line. His distribution is very good, and you can understand why Franco Smith is trusting a 19-year-old. But for the England side, also spare a thought for Jack Willis, who came on to make his England debut, scored a try, and just a few minutes later suffered a horrendous knee injury, which we don't know too much about. It was with a whole crocodile roll from the ruck. So now lots of debates about whether it needs to be ruled out. It is a very dangerous part of the game, and it's almost a surprise you don't see this sort of injuries more often, because when your boots do get so stuck in the grass and you're getting twisted around in an unnatural position, it's just become so bad for the knee. And with no crowds like it, you can hear from the cry from Jack Willis how bad it was. So unfortunately, it does probably look like his campaign is over. But he looked really good when he came on. Brought a lot of energy to the field. It wasn't nothing illegal or anything like that. There was no foul play. But do spare a thought for him. Hopefully he is back and playing very soon, because he's really earned his call up and been playing some fantastic rugby up till now. In terms of Owen Farrell, I think he's another one. He didn't have a particularly good game, had a couple of knock-ons, but I also think that today illustrates the bit of the side of Owen Farrell that people don't like to see, and whether he's sometimes got the temperament, because Italy were very, very confrontational and wanted to try and get in the faces of the English team. And it worked to a large degree because, if you're going to get bullied throughout the entire game, I mean, England were there to bully Italy, just, run over them, tie them down. And Italy's sort of response to that was to try, when they got their penalties, when they got their opportunity, to try and really sort of get under the skin of England and try and let them make silly mistakes. And it did happen. And, Owen Farrell was spoken to on a couple of occasions about the discipline of his side, but him in particular, England conceding 11 penalties to Italy's 8. And I think that we saw, the part of Owen Farrell where sometimes he can lose his head. And, we saw a ruck where there was a couple of handbags being thrown, and he came flying in from sort of 40 meters away, and the referee actually has to pull him to the side and say there's no need for that. And he's trying to justify himself, but there is no need for that. And I think that's a part that he needs to be very cognizant of the fact that as the captain, he needs to maintain his discipline, and in turn sort of maintain their discipline, because there will be other sides who will. I'm sorry, if you're watching any other side, you watch that sort of match and you see how England was so quick to sort of latch onto the confrontation that Italy tried to create. It'll probably be a tactic for other teams going forward as well, because that's when discipline starts slipping. And when discipline starts slipping, anything can happen. When you start conceding all those penalties, anything can happen. But yeah, let me know what you thought of the game down below in the comments. For me, it was a much better performance from both sides. A lot of positives from both sides. I think England still needs to get a lot better, and I think Italy gave a decent account of themselves. I think it probably, if they scored another try, probably would have been more reflective of the game. But they did lose by 23 points, so it was quite a big margin of victory. But there are a couple positives for Franco Smith and his men. Let me know what you thought of the game. As always, I'll be back very, very soon. Thank you very much for watching, and please don't forget to subscribe and smash a like on the video if you enjoyed it as well.